Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Christine Haskell from the US. And over the decades, that sort of introduction, I'm such and such from the US, has become an increasingly loaded statement. I have 30 years of experience in technology and 9 years of teaching graduate MBA students, which I genuinely love doing. Yet today, I find myself needing to bring clarity to what I stand for because the brand promises of both technology and national identity are no longer as clear as they once were. Trust and authenticity are increasingly earned individually, one person, one community at a time. This means we need to take our time getting to know one another and truly invest in understanding the consequences of artificial intelligence while nurturing human connection and community. This brings me to an essential parallel between our current AI governance challenges and democracy. Democracy is, in essence, a basic but underdeveloped form of collective governance, much like a rowboat compared to a sailboat. The rowboat requires human power, and a sailboat moves with the wind. Similarly, while democracy functions through the distribution and balance of power, we're learning that that power can not be balanced merely through rules and regulations. This mirrors what we see in the big nine companies governing AI development. Just as democracy requires awareness of hidden signals and marginalized voices, the structures governing our AI platforms and tools must recognize how many individuals and groups are potentially being left out of crucial decisions that will affect us all. We see how well laws can protect fundamental rights and yet still struggle to address subtle power imbalances and systemic inequities. As civic governments undergo various reforms to determine who is and who is out, we must never forget the big nine are kind of a self-governing nation unto themselves right now as those civic governments attempt to catch up. What we need is more of a more evolved approach, one that not only addresses power abuses, but also clearly reveals power dynamics. This enables people to find their individual agency and create a more fluid power balance through meaningful interaction with others. This image from 1969, The Watchful Robots, it depicts a futuristic classroom imagined by Japan's Shonen Sunday magazine. While we might find the retro futuristic aesthetic amusing today, it carries an important lesson about how we envision tomorrow's education and the role of technology and learning. We humans have a peculiar relationship with future predictions. It's tempting to play a game of what did they get right, but predictions reflect more about the present in which they're made than the actual future they attempt to forecast. Just as we might smile at the clunky robots that never materialized, we must critically examine our assumptions about clunky AI tools in education today. The most compelling work in education doesn't happen in perfect predictions or dystopian warnings, but in the messy middle, where our dreams meet reality, that space in where complex questions resist easy answers. That is where fundamental transformation occurs. And as much as leaders may dream, technology cannot drive it alone. It requires thoughtful integration of new tools with timeless human needs. 50 years ago, they thought robots would be teaching us by now. That technology would fix main, the main challenges in the classroom, much like we do today with AI. Yet the most crucial questions remain. How do we ensure these advances serve all learners? How do we preserve human connection while embracing innovation? How do we bridge not just digital divides, but deeper gaps in opportunity and access? As we gather for another year of vital conversations, we're not here to simply predict the future or critique the past. We're here to roll up our sleeves and engage with education, educational transformations, complex, fascinating work. My colleague, Dr. Wendy Yi from Malaysia, will join us in the second half to explore these themes further. But before we dive deeper, I'd like to take advantage of our virtual format. Um, this isn't a traditional auditorium, and we shouldn't treat it as one. And so I invite you to actively participate. Some of you have started already, which is great. To in the chat and make those connections one on one because that's what this is about. And to begin our dialogue, what is the most, think about the most significant change that you've witnessed in education over the past year. What has surprised you, challenged you, or inspired you in your own educational context? Your insights will help ground our discussion in the realities of everyday education and inform the conversations throughout this conference. Wendy and I will be unable to actively monitor the chat, but we'll try to kind of keep an eye on it as we go along. Um, but let's explore how we can genuinely bridge the technology and human connection in education, grounded not in yesterday's visions of tomorrow, but in today's reality and tomorrow's genuine potential. So, looking at global education in 2024, we find ourselves in a familiar space between predictions and past realities. Back in 2000, the international community made bold predictions about achieving universal education access by 2024. But here's where the story gets interesting and why we need to move beyond futures of the past thinking. We thought we would have universal primary education by 2015, but according to UNESCO's Institute for Statistics, 258 million children and youth are currently out of school. While we dreamed of global youth literacy rate, an International Telecommunications Union reports that 2.7 billion people still lack internet connectivity. While the 2000 Millennium Development Goal aimed for elimination of gender disparity by 2015, as of 2022-23, gender disparity is complex. Near parity achieved in primary education, but significant gaps remain with 129.2 million girls out of school, women comprising two-thirds of illiterate adults, and a stark regional disparities, and particularly in secondary education in low-income countries. Systemic gaps exist nearly a decade past the target date, though the direction and size of these gaps vary by educational level and region. As we discuss AI in education, UNICEF's late data shows that only 3 in 10 schools in the least developed countries have basic electricity access. These aren't just numbers, they're a reality check about the gap between our aspirations and current reality. Just as our opening image of the watchful robots reflected in 1969's dreams of automation, our current predictions about AI and education need to be grounded in these present day realities. This brings us to an important question for all of you. Considering these verified challenges in infrastructural need, which infrastructural need should, should be our priority focus? So think about basic electricity access, internet connectivity, device availability, and teacher training. Just which one would be your top priority, and just kind of, riff in that in the chat. Your responses will help shape the discussion about moving forward with realistic impactful solutions rather than just new predictions. Because ultimately, this isn't about failed predictions, it's about understanding how our current challenges should inform our actions today. As we examine these numbers, let's examine how different regions are navigating these challenges in ways that might surprise us. Um, there's 3 cases that I'm going to talk through, and they're different approaches to common challenges. Uruguay's Plan Cybel shows how sustained national commitment to digital inclusion can transform education systems. When Uruguay launched Plan Cybel in 2007, skeptics predicted it would be another failed technology initiative. The common prediction was that merely distributing laptops would attempt to solve complex educational challenges. But Uruguay showed us something different, how sustained commitment and comprehensive planning could exceed original predictions. What's interesting is that while many predicted the program would focus solely on hardware distribution, Uruguay's reality showed us that success came from what wasn't predicted: political continuity across 4 administrations, intensive teacher training reaching 93% of the workforce, and social inclusion through free internet access points. At $100 per student per year, they achieved what many thought was impossible. In Vietnam, uh, Vietnam's story challenges our predictions about educational model transfer. When Vietnam considered accepting Colombia's Escuela Nueva model, many predicted it would fail due to cultural differences. Instead, they showed us how thoughtful cultural adaptation could surpass original expectations. The reality departed from predictions in surprising ways. Rather than westernizing their approach, they aligned it with Confucian values. Instead of high implementation costs, they achieved remarkable results at just $17 per student annually. This wasn't about following predictions of necessary modernization, it was about understanding local needs. Kenya's Primer initiative beautifully illustrates how reality can transcend our resource based predictions. When the program began, common predictions suggested that significant technological investment would be necessary for meaningful educational improvement. The reality proved far more nuanced and impressive. With just 429 per child, they achieved what many thought impossible in our digital era, an 82% improvement with basic literacy scores. They showed us that thoughtful implementation and local ownership could achieve what technology alone was predicted to do. Um, so, looking at these three cases, we can see a common thread that success came not from following predictions, from understanding local realities and needs. I'd like to hear from you in terms of what surprises what surprised you most about these implementations and how they differed from what might have been predicted. And you might share your thoughts in the chat. Um, and I can't quite see that right now, but um, moving from our case studies to the current state of technology integration, the data shows us where we truly stand. The ITU UNESCO Connecting Schools initiative reveals a stark reality. While we discuss artificial intelligence and virtual reality in education, half the world's schools still lack basic internet access for teaching. The UNESCO State Technology Report reveals another critical gap: the device divide. In high income countries, we're approaching a 1-to-1 device ratio. However, in low income countries, we see as few as one device per 100 students. This isn't just about hardware, it's about access to modern educational opportunities. Considering your local context against these global figures, share one technology integration challenge that you're currently facing? I'm just trying to toggle between the chat and this to keep track, but um, in terms of the AI frameworks, these frameworks from UNESCO and OECD represent our best thinking about AI readiness in education. But look where they begin, with infrastructure and connectivity already in place. Now, if we overlay these baseline statistics, 48% of schools globally lack electricity. Nearly half of the world's schools cannot begin engaging in these frameworks. They need help to reach the first rung of the ladder. And this isn't a criticism of the frameworks themselves, they're valuable tools for schools ready to implement AI. But rather, it's a stark reminder of how the discussions about AI in education risk leaving out much of the global education community behind. And so, if we were to consider this disparity as we discuss AI in education, the question isn't how to implement AI effectively, but also how to ensure its benefits don't further widen the existing education gaps. So, moving beyond the hype and fear of AI and education, and there is a lot of it, let's examine what's actually happening in classrooms and institutions today. The numbers tell an interesting story of both progress and challenge. According to Education Week's latest research, 40% of educators already use AI tools primarily for administrative tasks. Meanwhile, EDUCAUSE reports that two-thirds of higher education institutions are actively developing AI policies, not because they're chasing trends, but because they're trying to address present-day reality thoughtfully. And here's where we enter the messy middle I mentioned earlier. And while we've seen significant investment, 2.7 billion in AI education technology last year, according to Holland IQ, we're also facing fundamental challenges. UNESCO's latest data shows that 58% of schools globally have have reliable internet access needed to make any of this technology meaningful. And ISTE reports that only 24% of teachers feel they've received adequate training in AI tools. Yet we're seeing promising results where the infrastructure and training are in place. The Gates Foundation recent study shows 31% in personalized learning outcomes when AI tools are properly implemented. McKinsey's education practice reports 42% reduction in administrative workload, potentially freeing up more time for human interaction. So as we look at these numbers and anecdotes, it's clear that the path forward isn't about choosing between technology and tradition, but finding thoughtful ways to enhance the human learning with new tools while addressing fundamental needs. So I'm going to hand things over to my colleague, Dr. Wendy Yee, who brings a unique perspective to this conversation and one that bridges technology and human connection and peace studies and cultural understanding. And she'll help us explore not just where we're going, but how we ensure no one gets left behind in the journey. And Wendy, as we've seen from the chat in these cases, educators are hungry for ways to balance innovation with inclusion, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on building these bridges.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Christine. As Christine has shared, there's no doubt that technology has transformed education, and it offers powerful tools to enrich learning experiences. However, these benefits also introduce significant challenges. Now, besides the lack of infrastructure, which a bulk of it has been shared by, Christine, it has other challenges, particularly for younger students who may lack the preparation to use digital tools constructively. So I guess we all remember almost like 4 years ago when COVID-19 hit the world, the integration of technology into education accelerated almost overnight. Teachers and students, especially younger students, were unprepared for this rapid shift. So as a result, students were thrust into the digital spaces without being introduced to the foundation in digital citizenship nor digital literacy, a gap that continues to pose risks today. So what are the risks? According to the OECD's 2022 Digital Education Report, 64% of educators reported that students lack basic digital literacy, hence limiting their ability to engage safely and effectively with online resources. And UNESCO 2023 Global Education Monitoring Report further reveals that only 30% of countries include digital literacy systematically in their education curriculum. Now, this indicates a broad global gap in preparing students for safe online interactions. So without these foundational skills, students are vulnerable. They are vulnerable to various online threats, such as exploitation by profit-driven platforms, addiction, and exposure to harmful content. For instance, according to the Children and Screens report, 75% of children ages 8 to 18 lack basic skills for safe internet use. Additionally, over 40% of students between the ages of 10 and 14 struggle to differentiate educational content from entertainment and other online dangers, often with significant implications on their mental well-being and social development. And data from the Pew Research Center also indicated that 75% of students under 18 report encountering fake news, and many cannot discern it from credible information leaving them exposed to manipulation and misinformation. Now, another example of online danger when young users lack digital literacy is the exposure to risky online challenges, often trending on platforms such as TikTok. Now, these challenges can involve high risk behaviors, placing our users, especially the young users, physical safety at risk. Now, for instance, the viral blackout challenge, and I think some of you are familiar with that, and also, of course, other dangerous online trends have been linked to serious injuries and even fatalities among young users. So, this draws attention to the need for stringent safety protocols and content moderation measures. Now, another report from the joint technical investigation between Amnesty International Research and the Algorithmic Transparency Institute, the report shows how children and young people who watch mental health related content on TikTok's For You page are quickly being drawn into rabbit holes of potentially harmful content, including videos that romanticize and encourage depressive thinking, self harm, and suicide. So, the lack of ethical accountability from tech companies combined with AI driven algorithms that repeatedly show similar negative content significantly increases risk for young users. And many platform algorithms are designed to prioritize engagement. So, meaning they will continuously reinforce content that a user has previously interacted with. And these can create a harmful feedback loop where young users are repeatedly exposed to negative and potentially harmful content. So, as you can imagine, without ethical regulations, these algorithms can lead young people into patterns that may negatively impact their mental health, self esteem, and well being, while tech companies focus on maximizing engagement rather than prioritizing user safety. Now, another serious concern, especially due to the lack of regulation, is the role of AI in interacting with our young users. Now, a tragic example is the death of the 14-year-old Civil, who died by suicide in Orlando, Florida in February this year after spending months communicating with an AI chatbot through character.ai. Now, this heartbreaking case has highlighted the potential dangers of AI chatbots interacting with vulnerable teens, and these underscore the urgent need for regulatory standards to protect our young users. Now, furthermore, issues on data privacy have surfaced with tech companies collecting vast amounts of data from young users and often without parental consent. UNICEF reports that 90% of children's data is vulnerable to exploitation by tech companies for targeted advertising, with many children aren't even aware that their data is even being tracked. The Children and Screen report found that over 30% of children had been contacted by strangers online. And UNICEF highlights that 1 in 3 students have experienced unwanted solicitation online. So this situation raises critical questions about the ethical responsibilities of technology providers and the need for stronger regulations to protect their young users. Now, another pressing issue is the psychological impact of prolonged screen time. Now, according to the American Psychological Association, prolonged screen time is associated with increased symptoms of loneliness, anxiety, depression, and attention issues, all of which interfere with learning. Now, just to share one example, based on a recent survey by Amnesty International Research, a case of a 21-year-old woman from the Philippines. Now, she reported, and I quote, "I deleted it for a while because I was very addicted to it. I would spend so many hours on TikTok just scrolling down through the videos because you can't help but wonder what goes on next when you scroll down. It affected my schoolwork, social time with friends, and I kept scrolling through their feeds late at night instead of catching up enough sleep." Unquote. So all these are definitely signals of health risks when there is unregulated usage of technology by young learners. As reported by the Global Education Monitoring Report 2023, it says there is increasing evidence that shows that increased exposure to social media is related to mental health problems, including eating disorders and many other issues that condition and distract social media users, particularly the girls, from education, which affects their academic achievements. Now, as we speak today in this amazing conference, Reimagining Education, data clearly shows that young learners face significant risks online due to the lack of foundational digital literacy, limited awareness on online safety, and insufficient supervision. And combined with unethical, profit-driven practices by some tech companies, these factors leave young users highly vulnerable to data misuse, exploitations, and various cyber threats, including scams, cyberbullying, mental health issues, and exposures to online predators. So while digital tools offer valuable learning opportunities, it is crucial that technology and AI prioritize safety, mental health, and ethical considerations, especially for the young, vulnerable users, over engagement and profit. So by doing so, we can create digital environments that truly support education and well-being. So the question is, what shall we do now? So there's no turning back to not using AI or technology for education. So we must make AI and technology a meaningful partner in education, especially in fostering global citizenship education. And education is one of the most vital pillars for sustainable development, as represented by SDG 4.7. So the development and application of AI and technology in education should therefore align with this goal by promoting critical thinking, emotional well-being, and responsible digital citizenship in young learners. So for these, the guiding principle must be that technology should support and amplify human development, not replace nor threaten it, and that it should preserve genuine human interaction to prevent a future of robotization. So to achieve this vision, every stakeholder must play an active and ethical role. We must move together as educators, policymakers, tech companies, each contributing to a responsible digital environment that nurtures young minds without compromising their well-being and development. So therefore, I would like to suggest some collaborative efforts by the different stakeholders. Firstly, the tech companies are pivotal in this endeavor. As recommended by UNICEF, WHO, and the World Economic Forum, their commitments to ethical practices should include transparency in data collection, ensuring practices are clear, and limiting data collection on minors. Child-friendly algorithms that prioritize safety and restrict exploitative content and avoid pushing harmful material to the young users. Age-appropriate content design, promoting safer online environments for young users, and the need for collaboration with educators to focus on student well-being over engagement metrics, and mental health consideration in its design to avoid features that trigger addiction or anxiety among young students. Secondly, schools. So schools need to actively address students' preparedness for digital engagement. So according to UNESCO, introducing digital literacy from an early age is essential to equip students with skills to navigate online safely. Effective digital literacy programs should teach students not only how to use technology, but how to critically evaluate content, identify scams, and recognize algorithmic manipulations. So learning the basics of AI will also help them understand how algorithms work, how they shape online experiences, and the importance of privacy. By doing so, students will become more informed users and better able to identify potential risks and make choices that prioritize their safety and digital health. Thirdly, government involvement is crucial in creating a secure digital landscape for young learners. Policymakers should implement regulations that protect students' digital rights, set standards for ethical digital designs in educational technology, and mandate protective features for minors. And initiatives must be in place and must place importance on protecting young users from exploitative contents and ensuring technology serves as a supportive tool for growth and not a source of harm. So, in summary, what is our direction moving forward now? So, we need to create an ethical, healthy, and safe digital education. Technology in education amplifies and risks human well-being and should not be profit-driven that jeopardize students' mental health or isolate them from human connection. In addition, we must remain vigilant that technology does not replace interpersonal relationships, authentic human intelligence, or our capacity to care. So, if used responsibly, technology can enhance human development, helping learners remain engaged in ways that celebrate their innate human intelligence and potential. Ultimately, building a foundation in digital literacy is critical to safe and effective technology integration in education, making technology a tool for human connection. So to conclude, I'd like to share a profound insight by Dr. Daisaku Ikeda, founder of the school I'm currently at, that is the Soccer International School Malaysia. He said, and I quote, "No matter how critical the times or adverse their circumstances, human beings are inherently capable of working together to bring forth positive value and generate waves of change that can transform the era. Now, more than ever, we need to construct a society where people can confront and together overcome even the most severe challenges and together share a sense of joy of being alive." Unquote. So Dr. Ikeda's words remind us that even in the most challenging times, humanity holds an inherent capacity to work together and create positive change. Through these collaborative efforts, we can uplift future generations without compromising their safety or well-being for profit or superficial gains. So these shared purpose inspire us to envision a future where technology and AI in education are deeply rooted in human dignity and connection, integrating humanistic values at the heart of educational technology to support human flourishing. So with this, I'll pass the floor back to Christine. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm excited to introduce you to something that we're working on, an exciting concept document called the Global Student and AI Rights Declaration. Every year, we're standing at a watershed moment. It doesn't seem to matter what sector we're in. And I've been in technology for a long time. It's been 30 years of watershed moments. But this is different. The rapid integration of AI technology presents both extraordinary opportunities and profound risks for our students' futures. This declaration isn't just another policy document, it's a blueprint for protecting human connection in education while harnessing AI's potential. We're creating a framework that ensures technology serves education and not the other way around. Why are we doing this? Every day, millions of students interact with AI powered educational tools, yet we lack comprehensive protections for their privacy, well being, and learning outcomes. Commercial interests are increasingly shaping educational spaces, often prioritizing engagement metrics over genuine learning. Meanwhile, digital divides are deepening existing inequities, creating a two-tier learning education system. The human connection that lies at the heart of education is genuinely at risk, and we're seeing signs of this already, with increased screen time affecting mental health, algorithmic systems replacing teacher judgment, and standardized digital approaches threatening cultural diversity in education. Um, why now? We're really at a critical juncture. AI adoption in education is accelerating exponentially, and the decisions we make now will shape the educational experiences for generations. We have a narrow window of opportunity to establish guardrails that protect student rights while promoting innovation. The global community has already recognized this need through frameworks like the UN SDG 4.7, and we're seeing unprecedented alignment between educators, institutions, and forward thinking technology providers on the need for ethical guidelines. The momentum is here, and we must act now to channel it effectively. How we'll get there. The declaration provides concrete mechanisms for action, a global implementation fund for ensuring equitable access, a clear accountability measures for both institutions and tech providers, and comprehensive teacher training programs, the evidence-based guidelines for AI integration that preserve human connection. And success requires commitment from all stakeholders, governments providing regulatory frameworks, institutions implementing ethical guidelines, and technology providers providing student well-being over profit. We're just not protecting students. We're preserving the essence of educate. We're, we're preserving the essence of education itself, the human connection that transforms information into wisdom and learning into understanding. The choice before us is clear. We can let AI reshape education without guidance, or we can actively shape its integration to serve our highest educational ideals. This declaration provides the framework for choosing the latter path. And this is something that we're just getting off the ground within the volunteer subcommittee. And I'm just getting the framework together. So this is in early days. And we're starting off with the pledge. So this is the QR code. And this is something, so I just wanted to, so as we conclude our AI and education address, I want to invite you to be part of something larger. I opened the presentation with the idea of trust and connection, and are now earned on individual actions, one person and one community at a time. Brands, nations, and algorithms all require the power of the community to operate. And we must truly invest in understanding the consequences of artificial intelligence and nurturing human connection and community. And the Global Student in AI Rights Pledge isn't just a social media tag, it's the start of a collective action toward a movement ensuring we embrace AI's potential while protecting what matters most, our students, our cultures, and our human connections. The QR code on the screen will take you to a pledge text and signing platform. And right now, like I said, we're in early stages, and it's a fairly simple document, and joining us in shaping the educational future that's both innovative but deeply human. And so share your commitment. And thank you for your attention, and we look forward to building this future together.
Dr. Christine Haskell and Dr. Wendy Lee. It was quite insightful. I think you were able to channelize the very essence of the conference, as well as address some of the challenges facing education. I do hope that we as educators adopt technologies with an intent and with the right design. So intentional by design in terms of how we incorporate technology or anything for that matter within education and to challenge the status quo. So thank you, Dr. Haskell and Dr. Lee. Really appreciate your contributions and your State of Education address.
Thank you so much for having me.
And to the audience, we have a draft declaration that we have been working on. So please feel free to reach out to us. We will be very happy to have your consultation on the same. And perhaps you can sign the declaration once we publish it officially.